Welcome to Teen Drama with me, Destiny B, and I'm going to be quite frank with you. Today's episode is based in pure rage. So today's episode, I'm going to be talking about what it's like to be a Black woman growing up in a area where it is mainly white. For reference of my experience with this, I grew up in classrooms where there was mainly white people in the classrooms. I would be the only or one of the only students in the classroom who wasn't white, and that was very difficult for me, and I want to talk about it on here because I feel like it is important. I don't have a huge platform, but I do have a platform, and I think that is important that we talk about it. So starting off, when I was younger, my dad was very protective of me. He would tell me to wear pants and stuff, and he would encourage me to wear boys' clothes that covered my arms and legs. And this accidentally made me very insecure about my arms and legs. Not just this act alone, because he never told me oh, it's such, you're not sexualized and things like that. And I'm very grateful he did do that so that I don't sexualize my arms and legs. But at the time, I had noticed that I had way thicker thighs and bigger arms because I am very naturally muscular. And also, Black women have naturally bigger thighs. So when I would notice all my friends are wearing shorts and things and I'm wearing sweatpants and they have smaller thighs than me, in my head, that automatically created the narrative that there was something wrong with my legs. And it wasn't until probably 7th grade that I got comfortable enough with my body to start showing off my legs. My arms, I didn't really show until maybe 5th grade. But it wasn't until I got into 7th grade that I started wearing things like that. And it was only because of tennis, because we had to wear shorts and skirts and things like that, and I really wanted to be able to wear things like that. So I do give tennis the full thanks for that. Another thing is my hair. Thankfully, I did have locks from the time that I was, I believe, 8, and that did help a lot with the hair situation because I feel like a lot of Black women go through a little bit more. But I did get my locks, I did take out my locks maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm not sure. And I haven't really experienced any backlash, but I do fully understand it now, because not only was when I had locks, I was looked at as a boy, because I feel like Black women are both overly sexualized and also seen as more masculine at the same time, which is very frustrating because we're ever sexualized because of our thick thighs, because of our big butts, because of our larger Tia Tamaras. And I feel like at the same time, we are also over masculized because of our muscle and our speed and our features. And that we're actually very feminine, surprisingly. Actually, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. So yeah, I feel like I was definitely seeing myself when I had locks, especially store locks, because I remember one specific time we had passed this booth at a farmer's market and they were selling coding classes, and they were would your son be interested in this? And my mom was that's my daughter. And that's mainly because it's difficult, because you don't want your daughter to grow up thinking should I be a guy, this, that, and the third, especially in this day and age wherever, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being part of the LGBTQ community. I'm saying that there is a lot more information about it, which can sometimes make people question things. They're I didn't even know this option existed. Could it be something that I fit into that category of? And I feel like that's kind of stressful. And going into that difficult area, going into 6th grade, I actually did get bullied for looking more masculine. And at some point, something that I didn't tell my sister or my mother until this month, people and by people I mean 3 boys at my school would call me a trans helicopter, and that hit me hard because it made me feel like I wasn't feminine enough because of my locks. And it's a pretty normalized Black hairstyle now. I mean, we have a ton of people in the media with locks. I mean, look at the new Ariel, she's not new now, but she literally has locks. Disney princess with locks. I never thought I'd see it. But now that I did cut my hair and I have naturally curly hair, it is not looked at as socially acceptable, especially because I have extremely curly hair, very, very, very curly hair, extremely tight coils, and what some would say is 4C around most of my hair. And it is a lot of hair, and I did cut it pretty short because my hair was damaged, but I know once it grows out, I'm not going to be as comfortable with it out and in an afro and things like that. Also, most Black women with their hair, if you see a Black woman going into a job interview, for a higher corporate job or something like that, you know what she's going to do with her hair? Straighten it. Why? Because that is considered more professional. And on the other side of that, I didn't experience this as a kid because I had locks and I don't remember anything past that. As far as my hair goes, I do know I used to wear it in like little braids with beads and stuff, like no added hair, just like braids. But black hair, when it's not in braids or straightened or like slicked up or something, is considered to be like unneat and untamed. And, you know, like it needs to be managed, but it is managed. It's just managed in the way that our hair is supposed to be managed, not in the way that European hair is supposed to be managed, which is why I think that it is a different level to be black. And also another thing is, I was actually insecure about my skin color for a little while because I was so dark compared to other girls and things like that. One advantage I will give you about being darker is that it is very hard to get sunburnt. I've been sunburnt, I believe, once in my life, and I still don't believe it's a sunburn, but my mom told me it was a sunburn, and I literally had like a piece of skin peeled off my shoulder after I'd been in Hawaiian Falls for like maybe 8 hours. And I feel like that's fine. I don't mind it, and I can be in the sun for hours without sunscreen and I'll be fine. I do put on sunscreen because you can still get skin cancer and you still can get wrinkles, but it's definitely harder to get burnt. Another thing for me, I am brown skin. I'm not super dark. I'm not super light. I'm definitely brown skin. For me is not only within the white community, but in the black community. I recently moved to a black school, and that community is definitely a lot different, and I definitely don't feel as like isolated, but I definitely feel like there's a lot of colorism. I feel like, especially with like my mom being light skinned, I feel like I've seen this up front and close. Not saying my mom's colorist, just like society as a whole. Especially because some people are light skinned and people see them as less threatening and things like that. And I feel like we shouldn't be pitting each other against each other. I mean, some people don't find darker women to be attractive. They only find light skins to be attractive, which is perfectly fine. If that's what you're attracted to, that's what you're attracted to. But it's because of a lot of biases that dark women have, like that we're loud, that we're more aggressive, that we like are arrogant, things like that. And I feel like even as a young kid, I experienced racism. I was recently thinking about and talking to like my sister about things that happened to me in kindergarten that like really bugged me with this one substitute teacher I had, and realized in that moment it was racism. So there was 2 times that the substitute teacher, I remember her saying something to me. And so we were talking about triangles because, you know, in kindergarten, the substitute teachers actually teach. They don't just sit there and read or sleep or scroll. So we were learning about triangles, and I went to a private preschool, so I already knew about all the shapes. So I decided that my shoe was too loose, and I untied it and then tied it again, and she got mad at me. She was like, I don't remember verbatim what her words were, and she was like, oh, just because you know this doesn't mean everybody else knows this. I don't know why you're trying to be so distracting. This, that, and the third. You untie your shoe, retie it. Are we all just going to sit here and watch you untie your shoe and retie your shoe? And that made me feel really bad because I wasn't even really doing anything distracting. I simply untied my shoe and retied my shoe one time because it felt a little loose and I was in kindergarten and all the things. And another time we were talking about the holes in our body, which is a great conversation to have with kindergartners, but truly, really now, if we had that conversation, that would go south very fast. But like all the different holes you have in your body and your body parts. And this one girl says, raise your hand, and she says, nose holes. I, without raising my hand, which I suppose might have been a mistake, said, those are called nostrils. The teacher got very upset at me, and she was like, oh, you want to be a smarty pants? Is that in the third? Nose holes is correct too. And I'm like, well, I didn't say anything, but in my head now, I'm like, well, it is called a nostril. Nose holes actually isn't correct. That is a way you could put it. But now that I look back on it, I'm like, other kids had done and said things that were definitely more escalating than what I had done and said. And at this point, I think it was either racism or prejudice, because you don't have to be racist to have preset things in your head. So me doing something the same as a white person, even if you don't think you're racist or anything, it's like, oh, they're more aggressive. They're trying to do something. Like a white lady clinching her purse on a bus. That's not because she thinks that every black man is evil. It's because every black man in the media has been portrayed as a killer and a thief and a stealer and things like that. And I feel like that's just not fair as a Black woman for me to have to experience racism or at least prejudice so young. And I didn't even realize that's what it was until earlier this year, which is what I think is probably the most frustrating thing. And recently, I have been very hyper aware of this because in every space I've been in, especially where I live, I feel like, and especially in this time, I feel like I have been experiencing a lot more prejudice and a lot more racism. And me coming up to drive and learning like what to do when you get pulled over, especially as a Black person, and seeing things that are happening to people who look like me. And it's scary and it is terrifying. And I think that we need to talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, that's going to be a problem. However, that is all for today. Again, this is Teen Drama with me, Destiny B. And if you want to have more serious conversations like this on my podcast, please comment in YouTube or Spotify, because those are the ones I check. Other than that, do all the interactive thingies and let me know what the hardest part of being a part of your racial group is, because I am genuinely curious, because I can really only see from my perspective.